to my channel. So today I just wanted to talk about one of my favorite movies from childhood. Well, I guess one of my favorite movies from the 90s that I tended to watch a lot when I was like a teenager, and that would be Twister. And you know how recently there was also a movie released back in July called Twisters, which may or may not be considered like a remake slash sequel to Twister. Well, anyway, in today's video, we're gonna see which one is better, Twister or Twisters. So for those of you who don't know, Twister was made back in 1996, and it was directed by Jan de Bont, starred Bill Paxton as Bill Harding, Helen Hunt as Dr. Joe Harding, Phil Seymour Hoffman as Dustin Davis, and Jamie Gertz as Bill's fiancée Melissa, and Carrie Elves as Dr. Jonas Miller. And so this movie was released by Warner Brothers back in May 10th of 1996. And Twister basically follows two meteorologists that are on the brink of a divorce, which is Joe Harding and Bill Harding. And it follows these two individuals as they work together to launch a new technology called Dorothy into a tornado, which would allow them to gather data about how a tornado actually works. And so the film follows these two doctors during their mission to launch Dorothy, their experimental machine. And it just shows them working with each other and their team. And as they chase these tornadoes all over Oklahoma, they end up running into their arch nemesis, Dr. Jonas Miller, who basically has all of these corporate sponsors and has sold himself to these big corporations, so he has access to like all of this technology, and he trusts this technology to lead him to find all of these tornadoes, while the Harding's team trusts Joe, who has this like innate instinct when it comes to tornadoes. She just like knows what they're gonna do and basically doesn't need all of this technology to figure out what these tornadoes are actually going to do. So basically it's like nature versus technology, essentially. So there are a lot of themes present in this film as well, such as facing your fears, embracing innate gifts, helping others, and whether or not you should choose wealth over kindness. And also kind of analyzing what it really means to be successful. And the main team that we follow in Twister, they're kind of wacky. So Joe is the main character, one of the main characters, and she's a meteorologist and storm chaser, and she's dedicated to launching Bill's invention, which is Dorothy, which would allow her to see how tornadoes actually form. She's very dedicated, loyal, and smart, but she's definitely an adrenaline junkie, and she risks everything, and she's very talkative and just like bickers and banters a lot with Bill. It's pretty funny. And Bill, on the other hand, kind of wants more stability in his life, so he's embracing his engagement to this new woman named Melissa, who is a very stable therapist, very sweet, shy, definitely a homebody, and is basically the entire opposite of Joe. And then my favorite character on their team is probably Dustin, or AKA Dusty. He's also an adrenaline junkie, and he has a fascination with tornadoes, and he's just really quirky. He's so funny, I love him. Okay, now Twisters, on the other hand, which was released on July 19th of 2024, has a very similar plot in a lot of ways to Twister. But Twister follows Kate, who is a college student, and she's pursuing her PhD in meteorology, and she's trying to tame a Twister, which basically she's trying to develop a technology that would make a Twister dissipate and would then end up saving a bunch of lives. So she's inventing this technology that she would launch up into a tornado and make it disappear. And we do find out that in this movie she is integrating the technology that Bill invented in Twister into her research. So you see Dorothy everywhere during this entire film, which is kind of a cool callback. I really appreciated it, but yeah. So at the start of Twisters, we end up seeing a flashback where Kate gets caught in a horrific tornado storm with her team, and she ends up losing almost everyone in her life to this tornado. And she almost ends up losing everyone in her team to this tornado. Everyone except for Javi, who is played by Anthony Ramos. And Kate is played by Daisy Edgar Jones. And if you see in Twister, you would notice that the start of Twisters is very similar to Twister, and that they both start out with a flashback about the main characters so that we learn what is motivating them to chase these tornadoes. In Twister, Jo loses her father. In Twisters, Kate loses all of her friends, except for one. So in Twisters, Javi ends up finding Kate in New York City because she moved there after the loss of all of her friends. She decided to stop chasing tornadoes and embrace a life as a meteorologist at a news station instead of a tornado chaser. But Javi convinces Kate to return to tornado chasing because he has gained access to some amazing technology that would allow them to learn more about tornadoes. So what's really interesting about Twisters is that they start out on the team dedicated to the use of technology, where in Twister, we're basically following the rebels who don't have to have anything to do with all of the crazy new technology. And we're also introduced to this other character in Twisters named Scott. And Scott is essentially Dr. Jonas Miller. He's very arrogant and stubborn and bases all of his thoughts and opinions on what the technology says, not on his gut. Well, anyway, so as Twisters progresses, we see Kate working with Javi and Scott, and they end up coming into contact with their so-called nemesis. And his name is Tyler Owens, who is played by Glenn Powell. And Tyler Owens is this tornado chaser who has a YouTube channel, and him and his buddies, basically they just chase tornadoes all day and release all these crazy videos documenting their adventures. And they sell merchandise and sign photos and have a bunch of fans that follow them all over the place. And this honestly drives Kate nuts. She finds him very annoying, but back to him later. So yeah, so basically in this film, we're following the people that love the technology instead of following the rebels. So in this film, the rebel tornado chasers include Tyler Owens and his team, and the technology users are Kate and her team. But in Twister, we're following the rebel team, which is Jo and Bill. But just a little bit about Tyler's team. He has these two buddies of his. One is named Lily and one is named Boone, and they are hilarious. Tons of fun, very entertaining characters. I love them so much. Okay, so those are some of the main differences between the two films, like plot-wise, and thematically, they're very, very similar. They both talk about facing your fears, embracing your innate gifts, helping others, and choosing between wealth, and kindness. So now, let's talk about the tornadoes. So the first half of the film, Twisters, is essentially the entire plot of the film, Twister. At least when it comes to the types of tornadoes that are included in the film and the rate in which they're spread out. So in the film Twister, we start out with the tornado that's included in the flashback. So both films start out with a tornado that's included in a flashback. The second tornado in each film is in Twisters. This is also a failed experiment. In Twister, the first tornado that we're introduced to after the flashback is a failed experiment. Okay, so then following the failed experiments, we also have the twin tornadoes. And the twin tornadoes occur in both films. And then after that, we also have a tornado that is essentially the midpoint of the film, and this tornado occurs outdoors. In Twister, it occurs at a movie theater. In Twisters, it occurs at a rodeo. In Twister, after the midpoint, which is where Joe's aunt gets hurt, that plot point pretty much just fuels Joe to continue chasing these twisters and not give up. But in Twisters, after this rodeo scene, Kate learns that she's actually working for the bad guys, which I'm not gonna tell you what that is because I don't want to ruin everything for you, but it has a lot to do with who Javi is working for. But anyway, and she ends up jumping to Tyler's side and ends up starting to work with Tyler. And Tyler ends up supporting Kate in pursuing the idea of taming twisters. And that's where the plot just essentially takes a whole new direction and they start working on this experiment together. But yeah, after that, a bunch of really cool things happen with like more tornadoes and saving people and losing people and all this crazy stuff. It's a great half of the film. They actually did a really good job of like keeping the plot moving in Twisters, where in Twister, it kind of gets a little bit boring after the midpoint. So that's one thing I definitely like better about Twisters. And also in Twisters, you know, it does include a romantic aspect like between Kate and Tyler, but Tyler is really working to like impress Kate and is really trying to build a relationship with her and kind of at least start out as a friend instead of jumping right into a relationship, like a romantic relationship. So it's more about camaraderie and not romance. Where in Twister, it's essentially completely about romance. That's like the main relationship that we follow. It's about romance, not camaraderie between a group of people trying to help others. So in that aspect, I also like Twisters a lot better for that reason too. So oddly enough, I know that people always say that the original is better than the sequel or the remake, but in this case, I'm sorry to say it, but I like Twisters better. Also the special effects are better, obviously, too, just because they have better technology now. But yeah, I'd say definitely like Twisters better than Twister. What are your thoughts? Do you like Twister better, made in 1996, or Twisters, made in 2024? All right, well, that's it for today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if there are some movies you would like me to review in my next video. I hope you have a phenomenal day, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys. Now, the question is, can I turn off my camera? Oh, but also I need to do this. Haha, that's what it was. I used to do the other arm first. Okay. I don't want to touch the lens.